So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining this afternoon, taking the time out of your day. This is the kickoff webinar for the Digital Advocacy University, which we had mentioned and kind of introduced back at the NAC P&I in March. Just a couple of things. If you can't stay for the entire webinar or you've got something else you've got to do, it will be recorded. And also, please note that we're going to be continuing these webinars. They should be once a month. Each time it might be me or another individual, probably from NAC, or who works in the advocacy space or works in the community health center world that might be leading one of the sessions. So today, I'm just going to kind of go over a little bit of an overview of just the course curriculum. So the objectives of Digital Advocacy University is different than we discuss social media for advocacy a lot, or at least I have personally led a lot of sessions on that. This is really more about resources that are needed to be successful in digital advocacy, how to design your strategy to support your policy objectives, or obviously health center policy objectives, and then to kind of understand the different components of the campaign and how to design them based on your goals and who you're trying to reach. So again, there will be one lesson per month, but of course, since the webinars will be recorded, you can kind of go at your own pace at your health center's training needs. So there's not going to be, so what I'm planning to do is that this will be recorded, but will always be available online. So people will kind of be able to go and have a resource bank if they want to go back and listen to them, or if they wanted to listen to like 5 at once, whatever they wanted to do. Today we're going to just go over a couple of questions, actually. So number one, is your health center digital ready? If you are developing a digital strategy, what should you consider? What type of things should you keep in mind in terms of choosing your platform, how you get the message out, what your targets are, and then how do you use digital to win? What are the tactics to be able to actually have a successful campaign? So just as an opener, what is digital advocacy is a question that we get. So if you look at political advocacy, that's typically defined as a broad effort to influence public perception, particularly in the legislative process or the policymaking process. So digital advocacy kind of elevates that same civic engagement by mobilizing constituents through technology. And I think that that's pretty straightforward, but if you have questions or anything about that, I'm happy to go through that. And I also wanted to say, I forgot to mention, that if you do have questions, you can type them in the chat box. I may not get to them right away, but I'll read them as I go through and then try to get to them at the end. So what makes digital advocacy valuable? So the first thing is, in terms of health center advocacy, it kind of elevates, as I said, it elevates that integral civic function through technology. And as we know, everybody is now using their phone to get in touch with people. People are on email, people are on Facebook, people are on Twitter. The days of just, kind of doing the word of mouth thing or asking people to maybe come in and do like a phone bank and stuff like that, those days are a little bit past. So it allows people to take action at their own pace, and it gives people yet another layer to whatever civic engagement they're already participating in. It drives that grassroots advocacy and also kind of gives you another layer of advocates that maybe you don't necessarily interact with regularly. And by that I mean you might have, your 100 folks in the community, your staff, friends, family that are always going to respond to an email that you send, when you say contact your legislator. But if you've built up kind of a digital advocate group online and you've got people who they're just following you on Facebook, they're just receiving your newsletter, maybe they've engaged with your website in some way, those people are ready to act too, and you have a different type of relationship with them, and you can target them in different ways and use their influence and their interaction to do what you need to do and achieve your advocacy goal. The other thing is it saves time and money in a way, depending on what kind of platform you're using and all of that. It can increase productivity because, you know, your message is there's never a stopping point to your message. You know, I compare it to having a call-in day. You know, after a while, people aren't going to be calling all night long, but anywhere in the world at any time, people can take action online. Somebody can do something on their phone, you know, in a digital space, especially in this day and age. And then, of course, it is a form of effective community outreach because it's allowing you to reach different demographics of people that you might not reach and letting them know, number one, what your message is, number two, your policy goals, and three, you're giving them a call to action and how they can get engaged and involved and learn more. So it is a very valuable tool. So the first thing I wanted to ask or propose to the group that's on is that, and yes, I just got a question about will the webinar be recorded? Yes, it will, and I will be sure to follow up with everybody with that information. Is your health center digital ready? So the first question is have you asked your leadership what's going on with the leadership and what tools do you have in place? And if you have a tool in place, this could be something like a CRM email platform, this could be your website, this could be something as simple as a social media page, this could be having a campaign that's been online, you know, anything like that. But does your leadership know about it and are they aware of it? And do they think that it's a valuable tool? That's the first thing. So you want to start with leadership. And being digitally ready is not so much being able to say, oh, we've got a website and a platform and, you know, it's all working, but is that the mindset of your organization? Which brings me to number two, are your employees involved and trained? Do your employees know what platforms you're using to carry out your technological efforts? So here, where I am at NAC, at the I Street office, you know, we often use WebEx, which is what we're on right now to do this webinar. We have obviously our email, Outlook, and we expect that all the employees know at least the basics of how to use that. So that's one part of being digitally ready, is to make sure that it's not just one person, you know, who can run and manage everything. And of course, you know, somebody who's, you know, the head of technology or somebody who's the webmaster, of course, that is going to be their wheelhouse. But it's making sure that that person has taken the lead on making sure that people are trained and aware of what tools are available and that they know how to use them. The other thing is that you want to kind of align your performance indicators with your digital culture. So by that I mean, if you're looking at your overall performance for your organization or for your health center, you're saying, you know, we served this many patients this year, we were able to employ this many people, our operation is giving this type of reinvestment into our community, and then you also will be able to say, and, you know, we have a top-of-the-notch website that has at least 3,000 users a month that are coming to get information. And we know that not only are they just coming to the home page, they're going to the advocacy page and they're able to see what our issues are and they're able to take action. So you're making sure that that digital culture is aligned with your performance indicators. And then also you want to use that to then measure your progress. So you can't just focus on, you know, how many people responded to a call to action. You want to make sure that there's a layer to it. You know, how many people are responding to calls to action, but also how many people are actually coming to our website. Are they getting the bulk of their information about our action alerts from the emails we send? Are they getting them from text that we're sending? Are they getting them from our paper newsletter? You know, you want to be able to know that so you can see exactly how progressive you were and see where you can improve to reach new audiences and new people. So that's the first question. Is your health center digitally ready? The other thing that you want to consider and think about is, if you're not, or if you feel like there's some room for improvement, what you can do. So the first thing is to be innovative. You're going to have to think outside the box in terms of what you can do to enhance your digital presence. That could mean taking a risk. That could mean maybe getting a new website or getting a new web page or redesigning your current platforms to make sure that they're user-friendly, make sure that people can actually go get the information they need and be able to take action. And again, just as a point, I want to be sure that I'm clear that when I'm talking about being ready in a digital space, it would be for the purpose of advocacy and so that folks can take action. The other thing is, as I just mentioned, you want to have those data-driven decisions that you've made. So based on what you know about who's interacting with you in an online space can influence what steps you'll take to improve it. If you want to make sure that if you have if you have a web page, let's say, or a website, and people are not visiting it that much because it might be very difficult to use, maybe that's an organizational decision to say, hey, we've got a little bit of extra money, or maybe it's time for us to rethink what we're doing with our technology budget and think about how we can use our data, our current data, and say, we want to get 5,000 more people who are engaged with us on our website. And take that and then be able to say, okay, this is how we're going to design that website because we've looked at the analytics, we've seen who's visiting, we see what would this demographic be interested in, what would they respond to, what's going to make it easiest for them to be able to engage with us on our page. The other thing, which is huge, 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 is collaboration. You want to have a cross-functional work environment in general, and obviously health centers are very unique in a way that there are boards that are made up half of patients. Obviously, of course, you have your staff, you have providers, and all of that. All of those roles require different skill sets and different things. So I'm not expecting and not suggesting that you're going to necessarily be able to collaborate. You in the communications team would be able to collaborate with a provider and get their feedback right away on what you should do to be to have a broader digital presence. But what I am saying is maybe you take that idea of, okay, well, we do have providers. We want to engage people. We want to show people what we do. Maybe we could tell a story, and we could have that on our website, or we could have, a testimonial from a provider or from a patient. Think about how you can use that cross-functionality that exists within the health center world to better your digital presence. The other thing is that you want to have that digital-first mindset. So one thing that I always say is anything that you want people to do, they should be able to do it on their phone, and that should be the first option, or they should be able to do it on their computer or mobilely. You want that to be the first solution. It shouldn't be like, well, we're going to expect people to go and write in or something like that. Everything should be focused in a way that somebody can submit something online, they can respond to something online, they can take action, and all of that. That should always be the first option. And then the other thing is you've got to be flexible. I know that there are several health centers that have operated in a specific way for a number of years based on leadership decisions and based on just the general flow of things and obviously capacity. But there has to be a little bit of open-mindedness to be able to adapt to change and to move forward and make sure that your health center is digitally ready. And that's something that you should consider. So innovation, data-driven thinking, collaboration, kind of that digital-first mindset, and of course, flexibility. One thing to consider, so when you think about your digital space, there's a number of things that could run through your head. Like I said, you've got your website, you've got your social media. You might be thinking about just an actual advocacy platform. Now, as many of you might know, here at NAC, we've used Phone to Action and Nation Builder, and we have several affiliates around the country, primary care associations that are using it too. But if that's something that you have not done, or if you're interested in getting your own CRM or whatever, if you're thinking about choosing a platform, a digital platform on which your advocates can go and act, you want to consider the following things. You want to say to yourself, can this create and activate people using email, using web forms, using social media, or phone? And I put phone because what I'm talking about is texting and mobile engagement. The other question you want to ask is, can you broadcast, can you mobilize, can you engage with text, links, and web codes? So in other words, could you create a form, that's asking people to take action, and could you embed that on your website? Are you able to easily text out a message that directs people to take action? Are you able to generate links? The other thing that you would want to consider if you're choosing an advocacy platform or an online advocacy platform is tracking and reporting. Are you able to get real-time updates on campaign activity and users? Are you able to go in and see people's profiles, see when they've taken action in the past, see what their history is, where they're coming from, what state they're coming from, what district they're in? You want to be able to see all of that so that you're able to actually, and going back to what I said previously, so that you're able to think in those data-driven terms, because that's ultimately what's going to make you successful in your digital strategy, and which we're gonna move on to right now. So your digital strategy. So ultimately, a good digital strategy would help your advocates and help your audience make the right decisions about the digital tools that they want to use or that they have access to emphasize messages, to create content, and to build relationships. So if you look at your, developing a strategy, there's a lot of different parts. You can look at it in terms of digital marketing, if you will. So you want to look at, first, your brand, right? What do people think when they're seeing you? Can they recognize you online? Does your website look totally different from the action alerts you created? Does it look totally different than your Facebook page? Does it look totally different than the emails you send out? You want to be able to have a identifiable look and feel that people are able to recognize. That would also go into web design, same thing. You want all of that to be on the same page. In terms of your strategy, and your digital strategy and all of that, a clear and practical digital strategy would help people be able to understand your organization and also understand what they need to do online and why. So you want to think about that in terms of, developing what it is that you want. So let's say, let's go back to fixing the health center funding cliff, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Our goal was to be able to make it clear what was at risk for health centers. So that was number one. But they knew they knew the Health Center Advocacy Network. They know what that's about. Then they know what our priorities are, which is protecting the interests of health centers and making sure that health centers have access to funding, sustainable funding. And then we had our ask. And so they knew what messages, what was the message they wanted to promote? Well, fix the cliff. They knew that they needed to build on those relationships with members of Congress. And they also had all the tools right there on our website available to them so they could actually carry out those actions. So ultimately, your strategy would kind of layer in a number of different things. So here are kind of 4 skills for developing that strategy. The first would be focus and identifying targets. By that, I mean, think about who you have in mind, or who's going to be most likely to take action. Is it going to be health center patients? Is it going to be people who are already signed up as advocates? Is it going to be people in the public health world? Think about who you're trying to contact, who you want to get the message, and how you want them to deliver the message so that you're able to achieve the policy goal that you desire. The other thing you want to do is grab people's attention. You want to make sure that whatever campaign you've designed isn't just something that, has been done before, or something that people will, see and kind of click over. You want something that will grab people's attention. I can give the example of the red alert for community health centers, which took place in February. This was also an effort to fix the cliff. But by wearing red, by having kind of the very bright red signs and posts and images on social media and on our website, people knew, number one, that obviously there was some urgency around what we were asking for, but it also was able to grab the attention of legislators when people were actually posting and sharing that information. You want to make sure that your digital strategy is engaging. You know, if you're asking people to do something, then make sure that you're following up on that. If you're asking people to engage with you online, make sure that you're reporting back to them on progress. And then the final thing is you want to be able to empower people, and that can be in a number of ways. You know, digital advocacy doesn't necessarily have to be going out and signing a contract and getting an advocacy platform. You can leverage, of course, your advocacy software, but it could also be posting on your organization's Facebook page. It could be tweeting people. It could be responding to tweets. It could be testimonials or story sharing, as I said. It could be, you know, making sure that you're keeping up with your blogs. You know, several health centers have blogs. It's a great platform to go on there once a week and mention, you know, this is what we're doing. These are our goals. And then the other thing, of course, you have is, you know, kind of what I call outside tools, like something like a thunderclap that we do for National Health Center Week, or a contest online where people are able to engage and they kind of get excited. It's a good way to empower people. But ultimately, you know, the right strategy would give advocates the best chance of using your platform and your messaging, not only just for you and for your benefit, but also they're using that on channels like Facebook, Twitter, and their own email, and they're putting it out on their own websites and their own blogs, reaching an even greater audience and further pushing your message to mobilize supporters, to find new allies, and then, of course, to advance, you know, the particular campaign's policy issue. So those are the things that you want to consider. In terms of amplifying your message, as I said, you might not be relegated to just using an advocacy platform. There are other ways that you can amplify your message by simply engaging the people that are right there working with you. So you want to make sure that you're first looking to your staff. As I said when we first kicked off the presentation, you want to obviously have buy-in from your leadership about, you know, why digital is important to adopt at your health center. But you want to make sure that the entire staff knows, and you want to recruit them to kind of be a part of facilitating the conversation. You know, so if you have, let's say you had a sign-up campaign, you know, we want to recruit 500 new people for our email list. Well, a great place to start is to say, you know, health center staff, you know, go on your own personal Facebook page, share the link, you know, and post a blurb about, you know, your role at the health center, why it's important, and ask people to sign up. You know, giving them a clear call to action and engaging your, what I call like the first responders would be the people that are working directly with you. The other thing is make sure that your audience or the individuals that you're trying to target, whether you're recruiting them to sign up for a list, whether you're recruiting them to take action, make sure that you've done your due diligence in terms of finding out what's going to resonate with them. And that brings me back to data. So if you have a patient population, let's say, that you know is inclined to book appointments on their phone, they're inclined to check in with you by looking at your Facebook page to see, you know, what the hours are, then maybe it would make sense to have that kind of, to make sure that you have at least a message or that kind of messaging that's on your Facebook page so that you know that those people won't miss that. You know, or even thinking about what will resonate with them in terms of what language you're using, you know, or what you're asking people to do, you know, time of day. All of those things you have to consider. You know, does my patient population or does my community generally, are they people that are working from 9 to 5? Or are these people that are working, you know, other hours? Are people working, you know, night shifts? When are they going to actually be able to respond? When are they going to actually have time to sit down and look at their email? You want to think about those things. The other thing is that, you know, and of course, you can do strategic targeting by picking your audience and you know, by segmenting lists and things like that. But obviously, that will all depend on, you know, on your community and all of that. But the biggest and most important thing is to make sure that you've established your messaging and that there's a clear call to action and a clear explanation about what you want people to do. That is the number one thing. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to sign up? Do you want them to sign a petition? Do you want them to engage with their legislator? Be very clear about that so that they then can, that would make it easier for them to amplify the message. The other thing about audience acquisition is that you can do things, and this is more in terms of if you're trying to, I would say, amplify via social media. But you can ask and incentivize things. You can promote things. You can promote your page, by doing paid advertisements. You can promote posts. You can do a campaign kind of within a campaign. So while you're asking people to reach out to your legislator to support health centers in a digital campaign, you might also say, this is why I'm asking, because X amount of patients are at risk. These are the most vulnerable patients, and here are their stories. So it could be a campaign within a campaign, if you will. So you can say, this is John. If he wasn't able to go to his health center, this is potentially what could happen. Now, please go and contact your legislator. The other thing that you want to do is make sure that you're incorporating if you are using social media in some way, shape, or form, that you're incorporating your buttons on social media so that if people are going to your page, they're able to see that they can also take action there, in addition to be able to taking action on your website and also being able to share that information. Excuse me. The other thing in terms of audience acquisition that can be key to digital strategy is power mapping. And it might seem a little bit old school, a little bit time consuming, but it actually can work. And especially for smaller health centers that have not been as engaged in digital advocacy before, a power map is a really useful way to kind of figure out who you need to influence and who can do the influencing for you to achieve your goals. It's a good way to identify your objectives, to get your messaging, and to figure out how, the media that you want to use to be able to promote it. So, in this example, you can kind of see that obviously there's a local official. You want to see how they connect, with somebody else. And the beauty of a lot of times in smaller communities is that, there are those relationships that exist. So sometimes you do have a city manager who has a cousin who works at the health center and whose wife might work at the local school, and you are able to make those connections. So it is good to kind of figure out, who do we know? How can we be strategic in aligning who we want to reach out to? And then also looking to other organizations and what they're doing, other local organizations, and what they're doing to engage their digital audiences as well, to see how that's worked and to see, what's worked for them. It's an opportunity to identify, kind of a network of individuals that can help push your cause in that digital space. The other thing, as I just kind of mentioned, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it, was integrating social media. So if, social media, and I've done a ton of presentations on it, but it really should be looked at as just another tool in your toolbox. However, if you don't, let's say you don't have a very active or up-to-date website, and you don't necessarily have an advocacy platform or something like that, maybe your social media page is what you can use to ultimately recruit and cultivate advocates. You've got to think in those terms, and also that's another way that you're cutting costs. That's another way that you're designing a strategy that is going to benefit your organization. It's not costing you that much money, and it allows you access to analytics and data where you're able to see how people are responding to posts, how people are engaging with you, and you can obviously see if you have a Facebook page or anything like that, how many people are coming to the page, what's working, what isn't. So that's something that I would really encourage you guys to consider and to keep in mind. So the other thing is content creation. So when you are designing your digital strategy, you've got to have some collateral, right? It can't just be, just text and emails and things like that. Of course, that's a great place to start. But think about your content creation. There are a ton of free tools online that you can use to get free stock images if you need them, to create videos, to create graphics and logos and things like that. And these are just some examples. Adobe Spark is a great example. Another one that I like to use is Canva, and this is just a screenshot of that. And it gives you basically the actual dimensions of the platform you're trying to post on. It gives you different templates and all that stuff. And you can incorporate your organizational colors. You can upload pictures and images and all that stuff. But you want to have content, you want to have real content that resonates with people and also encourages action. You know, you want to make sure that the message, that the imagery or the content that you're creating isn't just going to resonate with your go-to advocates. It will also introduce new supporters to your cause. So that means that, again, something eye-catching, something that that's going to draw attention to you and also entice people to want to learn more. You want it. It will also help you define your identity. You know, so people kind of know what it is and what you stand for, making that powerful impression so that people know, I know if I want to learn more about what's going on with health center funding, if I want to know what's going on with public health generally in my state or city or town, I think that this organization is a really great resource for that. And I know that they'll have something visual that I can go to, and I know that they'll have a very clear explanation of what I need to do. So the other and kind of final point, which we're going to go over, is using digital to win. And by win, I'm not necessarily saying that you will win the policy initiative that you want. What I mean is being able to win is in terms of exceeding your goals and really making sure that digital advocacy, just as we've talked about advocacy leadership and as we've talked about board member engagement, is just as intertwined into your health center operation as the other initiatives that we have. So the first thing that you'll want to do is inspire your supporters with memorable online actions. By this, that could be something like having a good example is the red alert for CHC. So having an online campaign where people can simply see and take action and see that what everybody else is doing. They can follow a hashtag. They can spread the word very easily. So you want to say like, oh yeah, I remember when they did, I remember when they did that red alert campaign, or I remember when they did the National Health Center Week campaign, because it was all over the place. It was everywhere. You want to be able to create, some type of echo chamber that really inspires supporters so that, that they're able to identify with you and to be able to build up your presence across channels. The other thing is to spread the reach of your digital campaign with social tools. I said that, but social sharing, it should be something that should be a part of any platform that you choose. Same thing with automation tools on your website. You should be able to have something where people can easily click to share, click to tweet. You want to be able to have very simple and easy access from one profile to another. So, like I said, from your website to your social to your email to all of that, people should be able to have a clear line and be able to share that information seamlessly. The other thing is to optimize your digital advocacy with intelligent data. And so that's going to be really your trick to really winning and having a successful campaign. This means knowing your supporters. This means making sure that you're looking at those action insights, and that you choose the type of CRM or the type of online platform that allows you to really see and get a good picture of what your supporters look like and what they're interested in getting. The other thing is to be able to report back to them and say, this has been the result of your actions, and being able to break that down in such a way that it makes sense. Oh wait, there were 100,000 phone calls, 3,500 people sent emails. People want to be able to see exactly what it was, and then that even drives more of a sense of urgency or a sense of advocacy, because then if you know that 100,000 people have made phone calls, but yet the policy decision that you want is still not happening, people are going to continue to act. People are going to want to do more. People are going to say, this is what we've done. We've got to do even more. We've got to spread the word even more. The other thing is to galvanize your digital advocacy campaign by leveraging targeted actions. And so by this is targeted messaging. So one thing that we did a few years ago now, I'm thinking, is we had a campaign where we were encouraging people to sign up to be a health center advocate. This was back in 2015. Some of you might know it was 100K in 100 days. we wanted to reach 100,000 advocates, and we wanted to do that before National Health Center Week. We targeted messages based on region, based on what we saw using our platform. We were able to see, oh, this person is a health center board member, so maybe this message will resonate with them. This person has themselves listed in our database as a health center patient, so maybe this will resonate with them. You know, you want to have that targeted messaging, and by that, then people are more inclined to take action because it feels personal, and those personalized interactions make a difference. The other thing is that it really all boils down to data. You know, data is what's going to help your organization's advocacy efforts, and it can greatly improve those performance metrics, which can, you know, ultimately result in an advocacy win. You're able to collect meaningful data. You're able to have insights that will help you be effective and help supporters keep up with the campaign and then optimize future campaigns and future initiatives based on what you've learned from the past. So that's what's going to help you. You know, if you don't take the time to look at data and to see how something is done, to report back on it, then there's never going to be any progress. It has to be down to looking at that data piece. And if you have the right type of digital advocacy platform, and if you're actually looking at analytics from your social media, from your website, then you should be able to do that. And I just want to say one point. Again, there are things like Google Analytics, there are things like Facebook Insights, there are ways in which you can check data and understand it without having to reinvent the wheel or hire somebody or anything like that. And I think that as a person, if you're leading up advocacy efforts and you know that there's somebody in your team or in your organization that's obviously handling, you know, the website and technology, I think it would make sense to have that cross-collaboration, as I mentioned earlier, so that you have a better understanding of what to actually look for so that you can improve your advocacy initiatives and your engagement. So just an example, as I said, when I said using digital to win, this is what I mean. These are screens. This is actually taken from a handout that was created that spoke to some of our advocacy campaigns and broke down, you know, the progress and the success. So, and this was based on, you know, analyzing data and reporting on it, and then ultimately it ended up inspiring people and empowering people to continue to spread the word about health centers and the movement. So for our Fix the Cliff initiative, you know, we started out, we were asking people, please email your member of Congress. Made it very easy for them. They could go to our website. There was a form right there. We explained why they were sending the email, what the purpose was, and it turns out that over the course of about, I would say 3, 4, or 5 months, we got 230,000 emails sent from our advocate base, 35,000 phone calls, 25 million impressions on social media, plus, you know, 200 actual in-person congressional meetings. We also were able to then take that data and translate that into our overall network growth. So we were able to see how we started last year, March 2017, the number of advocates we had, you know, how many people were engaging with us. Some of our campaign efforts, you know, like the Fix the Cliff, influenced that growth so that we were able to grow significantly by the next year. And same thing in terms of our, you know, our social following and in terms of our special programming. You know, the ACE program grew tremendously, not only because of, you know, of reaching out and you know, and spreading the word about the program, but because people were starting to see that there was more than one way to get involved and to implement advocacy, and digital advocacy actually happens to be, you know, an element of that program. So that's what I mean. You know, when you have these numbers, they're pretty compelling. Then you're able to say, okay, now we did a campaign where we had 230,000 emails that were sent. What can we do to get a campaign that will have 500,000 emails sent? What can we do differently? And I think by looking back and seeing, you know, where the gaps were, was it a certain state, was it a certain district, was it, you know, was it that there just simply wasn't the capacity in one certain part of the country? You know, those are things that you can keep in mind, and you can apply those same things and scale them down for the purposes of your goals at your health center. And here are just some examples. So as I said, digital advocacy, in the beginning I said it wasn't limited to just, going out and getting a platform like Phone to Action and then having a campaign and asking people to do something. You may not necessarily have that option or that capacity, but you can have something where you're asking people to share their story. That is an example of digital advocacy, because they're sharing it online and it's being published online, and then you're still encouraging people to learn more and to understand your issue based on that story. Another example is we do this every year for National Health Center Week. It's something like a thunderclap, and that doesn't have to be which is a unified message that goes out on one day that people can sign up for. That could be something as simple as, hey, I love my community health center. You can send that to your email list, have a link that goes along with it. People are able to say, all these people are tweeting about this health center. What is this? They go there, and then, boom, they're on your website to see some of the issues that you're focused on, to see your operation. Or it could be something that is a little bit more formal, as we've discussed, like contacting a member of Congress, contacting your legislator, because of a specific issue, and giving people a form, a way to send an email, a way to send a message that they can actually take action. So you have to kind of think outside the box, but remember that whatever you do, it's going to help you define your identity online, and it's also going to help you mobilize supporters and find new individuals and new allies. But first, you have to have the strategy. You have to get back with leadership, figure out the priorities of technology within your organization. What does a budget look like? Who's going to be doing it? How are we going to train everybody? And then think about ultimately your goals. Are we just going to, NAC always has, a call to action or initiative? Are we going to go off of that? Or do we have our own personal things that are happening in our state that we need to speak to and get people mobilized around? Do we need to collaborate with our PCA to see, what issues, that they've been discussing and what kind of digital engagement they're doing? I think that you have to be very strategic in your thoughts in terms of how you're going to carry it out. But it is possible and it is doable, and there's a million different ways to do it. So keep that in mind. The other things I just want to say is just in terms of trends right now. This is according to the Georgetown University Center for Social Impact. 56 or over 50% of organizations that are using storytelling is what's motivating people to take action on behalf of those nonprofits. Over 50% of those who engage with nonprofits on social media are further inspired to take action. So like I said, look at it as a layer, almost like a layer cake. First, you've got your strategy. Then you've got, how you're going to carry it out. And then you think about all the other methods of media and marketing that can distribute that message. And then think about those platforms or those spaces, and then how not only you're going to engage the people that you've kind of already got, but how are you going to get other people, and how are you going to get those people to further spread the message? So think about that. I mean, if people are engaging, if somebody's engaging with a nonprofit that they're not very familiar with on social media, but then they're just inclined to take action on behalf of whatever it is that their mission is, I mean, I think that's pretty significant. So it shows that, it can take a lot and a little to have some influence, but you have to be very thoughtful in terms of where you're putting your message and with what urgency and obviously with consistency. So you want to keep that in mind as well. One thing I did want to just say and touch on that I did not include in the presentation is that, your digital advocacy efforts are also not in vain. I think that sometimes people think that, we've already asked people to do something. We sent out an email. We sent out our newsletter. What is this really going to do if we don't have that big of a following? But the more you push out digital advocacy campaigns, the more that you're pushing out your messaging, the more that you do, the more that it's going to grow, and the message will be spread. And I always say this, but please use us, use NAC, use the Health Center Advocacy Network. If you have something that you want to push out, a call to action, a message, a campaign that you're on your website, and you know that you're only getting a couple hundred visitors per month, and you want more people to see it, and you put it on your Twitter account or your social media account, and you only have a few hundred followers, and you don't think people will see it, tag us, message us, email me, and we are happy to be that echo chamber for you as well. But again, you have to think about our audience and who else is going to see it. Our audience is an extension of other health center advocates, some of them with their own niche issues as well. So you want to think about partner organizations, think about other people in your community, where your message is going to resonate. So that's just something that I do want to be clear on, and hope that you guys will definitely use us as a resource now and, of course, moving forward as we continue to do this. So if there are any questions, as I said, you can use the chat box to send them to me. If not, and I do see some questions here. The slides will be available. Molly, I see your question. I will touch on that. I will also be sending out the webinar links and the slides and all that, so please don't worry about that. One question is, I feel like there's a struggle to reach new people and preaching to the choir. The power mapping helps, but there's a but, I see. Well, I think the thing is that you've got to look. I think there's a couple of suggestions. I think for reaching new people in terms of social media, you can make a post and target it at certain people. I just did that today. So I could say, I want this message to reach people who are 45 and over, who work in public health, who have an interest in community health centers. You can target that. You could say, I want to reach people in my community, in my town, but maybe, this age group, or maybe teachers, or maybe nurses at hospitals. You have to, make sure that you're kind of doing your due diligence in that way in terms of, what you're putting out on social. But I think in terms of just reaching new advocates, it's really about your messaging and like your email list. So if you have a CRM and you're able to go through and kind of see everybody, right? You're able to see, who signed up for our email. We have, 500 people who are signed up. You can go through and say, wait, is this person signed up twice? Oh, is this person at another health center, or is this person at another, health organization? Let me email them and see if they'll sign up the rest of their staff. You have to, and sometimes it's a lot of, it is a little bit nitty-gritty and it can be a lot of work. But I do recommend, kind of going through, making sure that you kind of clean up the list, and then think about how you can reach more people. And yes, of course, it is sometimes preaching to the choir, but I think that you'd be surprised if you go through and really do, especially deep dive on partner organizations and other community institutions that are also kind of going through the same causes. That's a great way to get your list up. It's a great way to collaborate with people. So so consider that. And if you ever want any type of reporting or anything to see, I'm happy to help with that as well. It is one thing that is important, that was mentioned in one of the questions, is that websites must be ADA compliant. And this is very true. It's something that I've encountered for the first time, actually, in my time at NAC and working with the Advocacy Leadership Program. We did have an individual that required special needs in terms of accessing the online materials. Your website should, I know it's in some, in some states, it's a little bit more, there have been a little bit more issues than others, but it basically is making sure that your website is compliant with the American with Disabilities Act, to make sure that nobody is denied or unable to take action because your website, doesn't allow for them to either have access to be able to listen or to be able to download certain information and all of that. So I think that, that's something to definitely consider, especially if you're redesigning your website and if, and you are, considering what you need to do, but technology and electronic information has to be accessible to people regardless of what their status is. It has to be accessible to people with disabilities. The other thing that I will say, another question I think that kind of came through, it was it was about, let's see, it was, it was about making sure that your message, or how to craft a message was one of the questions. How are we crafting a message? You know, how do you get, and keeping it on brand. So my suggestion with that is always this. If you have, I'll say it like this, the way the Health Center Advocacy Network has done it is we've tried to take kind of those basic themes and understandings of the health center world, like, for example, value CHCs, take that and make that kind of a branded thing. And it's become something that people have started using, you know, in regular speech, in their online communications and all of that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't mean you have to redesign your entire logo and have all new talking points and all of that. It could be something simple. It could be something like like Florida CHCs, or I've seen Louisiana do it. You know, Louisiana CHCs, something that gives people a recognizable kind of tagline about your organization, and then that way they can follow that and be able to share that and spread the word. But I don't think that it requires, a whole new branding strategy. I think it's really taking the brand that you know exists and getting creative with it. I saw another question come in here. Let's see. When there is a campaign, how often should we do a Facebook post without overwhelming our followers? I would say that my rule of thumb is, I would say every day. I mean, I think that as long as you're asking people, if you've got something that is sitting on your website that's saying we want people to take action, and you're sending out a newsletter that's saying, okay, you got to take action today, I think it makes sense that as long as you're running that campaign, that you at least have something once a day that's reminding people that says, hey, if you haven't already, click this link so that you can take action. Because the thing about Facebook is that you never know who might see that, and it can have an echo effect. People can share that and then somebody who had no idea what was going on might be able to see it. So I don't think you ever want to miss out on that opportunity to post and share on social media. The other, of course, beauty of that is you can always engage with other health centers or organizations that might be pushing for the same cause. I think it's a good way to get free cross promotion. It's a free publicity tool. So I would say, as much as you can, you should definitely use social media, use Facebook. I am getting a couple of other questions, and thanks so much, Dr. Phyllis, for your great note here. That was very kind. I'm getting a lot of questions too about the presentation again. It's going to be recorded. The slides will be available. I will be following up with you guys in terms of what's going to be taking place next month. I do want to make a couple of quick plugs. If you are a health center advocate and you have 10 friends, encourage them to sign up to be a health center advocate so they too can participate in this. National Health Center Week is coming up next month, August 12th through the 18th. It's a great time to engage online, see what other people are doing to kind of influence your strategy. It's a really great time to do that. We've got a great theme this year. It's celebrating health centers, home of America's healthcare heroes. So if you have events and that you're participating in, that you're planning, go ahead and post those, participate. We can't wait to celebrate with you. And then finally, remember that we also have our annual conference that is coming up at the end of August, the Community Health Institute and Expo. So if you're going to be attending that, I'd love to meet any of you there and further discuss this. But if you have suggestions, feedback, more questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. You can email me or call me, and I will share out my contact information. But I thank you guys so much for joining today, and I'm glad that some of you came away with some good information, and we look forward to doing this again in July. So thank you, guys.